What's up, guys? My name is Jerry, and today's video is going to be on the Toronto Raptors, and we're going to be talking about how they're going to ascend to the next level this NBA season, and we're going to jump right into the video. Now, to me, the Toronto Raptors are filled with so much potential, and this is based off what I've seen from them last season. And for me personally, I'm really big on adversity. I feel like as an NBA organization, if you can overcome adversity, then the sky is the limit. And the adversity that the Raptors were facing last season were injuries. All season long, we just seen them get hit with injuries to their most important players. Pascal Siakam was in and out of the lineup. VanVleet was in and out of the lineup, and then OG Anunoby, who missed the most games. He missed a huge chunk of time for the Toronto Raptors last season. So when you have these important guys in and out of the lineup, it makes it really hard to find a rhythm and flow. And we kind of seen the Raptors struggle a little bit last season, but then towards the end of the season, the second half of the season, as all of these guys started to get healthy and they started to mesh together and they're all out there on the court, they showed us a glimpse of just how great they really were, and they went on a huge run in the second half of the season. So now with guys expected to be fully healthy this season, and with the roster that they have, I expect some big things from the Toronto Raptors. And when I say ascension, I could see them having a season kind of like what the Memphis Grizzlies had last year, shocking the NBA, winning 50 plus games. And I think this is all going to start with Scotty Barnes. I'm not going to deem Scotty Barnes as the best player on the Toronto Raptors just yet. That's still Pascal Siakam's title, but I just feel like Scotty Barnes has a great impact on the game of basketball, and he has a great impact on both sides. And he's coming off a terrific rookie season that earned him the Rookie of the Year award. And my favorite part of Scotty Barnes' game, and I think this is what makes him so special, is what he can do on defense. Now, he stands at 6'9", 225 pounds, and he has a 7'2" wingspan. So when you factor that in with his elite athleticism and his mobility, it makes him a defensive monster. And Scotty Barnes, he can guard 1 through 5. He can bang down low in the post, box out, block a shot, grab a rebound, and then he can also get out there and full court press the point guard, putting some crazy ball pressure on him and coming up with a steal. And he's also engaged as a help defender, and you gotta love that when a great defender can stay disciplined when he's not guarding the player with the basketball. Scotty Barnes loves to rotate down and help at the rim, and he can also get into the passing lanes for easy steals that lead to easy transition buckets. So I love him on the defensive side of the ball, and he's also high impact on the offensive side of the ball. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, I like to call Scotty Barnes a point guard in a power forward's body. He has an insane basketball IQ, and he understands the game really well. And he really established himself as a playmaker during his rookie year. There were a bunch of times when the Toronto Raptors, they were running their offense through Scotty Barnes, and he was doing a great job of putting his teammates in positions to succeed. He is a very good passer in the half court and in transition. And also, Scotty Barnes, he has a great handle on the basketball for his size. He uses his long length, his long legs to use those easy strides to get to the basket. He's a physical finisher around the rim. He can play with his back to the basket. And then you just see the other parts of his offensive game developing, like the mid-range shot and the three-point shot. Things like that, that's going to build up over his NBA career. And when all of this comes into fold and when it all develops, he's going to be a very scary offensive player. But for right now, Scotty Barnes, he excels at playmaking, creating for his teammates, and he is a great finisher around the rim. So I love Scotty Barnes as a defender, and I think he has some crazy potential on the offensive side of the ball. So I think Scotty Barnes, he's going to be the catalyst for the Toronto Raptors. I think he's going to have the most impact on this team. And now we're going to get to those two veterans, man, the two all-star guys that has that championship experience. And you know, when you have those players that have that experience, it really helps you win ball games. And we're going to start with VanVleet. Now, Fred VanVleet is coming off a big-time season for the Toronto Raptors. He put up 20 points per game to go along with 7 assists, and those stats earned him his first ever All-Star game. So I feel like that is big time for him and the Toronto Raptors. And when it comes to his game, the best way I can describe him, I feel like he is the perfect mix of a modern day and a traditional point guard. And what I see in him as a modern point guard is his ability to score the basketball mixed in with the three-point shot. He can knock down that three-point shot with anybody, and he has some range on this tray ball. And he put up 20 points per game, which is really hard to do. I don't think people understand how hard it is to average 20 points in the NBA. So, and he can also get to the mid-range area and knock down the midi, and he can finish around the rim. Fred VanVleet, he is a very tough player. He can take contact, he can get crafty, and he also has the floater to his game. So that's how I see him as a modern day point guard. And then he also has that tradition point guard to him as well. He's very scrappy on the defensive side of the ball. He's a pest. He's not afraid to reach. He gets deflections. He's just an irritant. He's like a little pit bull on the defensive side of the ball. And then offensively, he still finds a way. Even though he's putting up 20 points per game, he still finds a way to create for his teammates. Putting up 7 assists was pretty impressive. So I think Fred VanVleet, he's going to play an intricate role for the Toronto Raptors next season, and I think he's going to help them ascend. So we talked about Fred VanVleet, and now we're going to talk about Pascal Siakam. Now I feel like when Pascal Siakam is 100% focused and he's on his A game, I feel like he's one of the best players in the NBA, and I think he brings a rare factor to the game of basketball, and that's being able to create so many mismatches and one-on-one situations. Now Pascal Siakam, he's one of those guys that if you throw a bigger player on him, like the power forward or the center, he has way too good of a handle on the basketball. He's shifty, fast, and he can get downhill with ease, or if that guy is playing off of him, he can pull up and he can knock down a mid-range jump shot. So I love that factor about his game. And then if you want to put a smaller, quicker player on Pascal Siakam, he can also play with his back to the basket. He has amazing footwork, and he's going to take that smaller player down to the block, and that's barbecue chicken. So Pascal Siakam, he is very skilled. He can bring the ball up the court. They can run the offense through him. He can create his own shot. He can be effective in the pick and roll as a roller and as a playmaker, catching that ball on the short roll and making something great happen. So Pascal Siakam, when he's on his A game and he has it in his mindset that no one can stop him, he is a very dangerous NBA player, and I think he's going to have himself an all-star caliber year next NBA season. So we talked about Fred VanVleet, Scotty Barnes, and Pascal Siakam, but there's still so much more to this Toronto Raptors team, and I feel like they have two guys who also have scary potential, and that's OG Anunoby and Gary Trent Jr. These two guys are very, very special, and we're going to start with OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby, he may seem young, but he's also an NBA champion, and he played some very solid minutes for the Toronto Raptors in 2019 when they won their first championship as an organization. And I love so much about his game, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And I think he fits like a glove with the Raptors because he's found a way to be effective with and without the basketball in his hands. And with the basketball in his hands, he has gotten so much better since he's come into the NBA. He can drive to the left, he can drive to the right, he can create a string of dribble moves and get to a pull-up jumper, and then he can get all the way downhill and finish at the rim. He also has the ability to knock down wide open catch and shoot threes, and then defensively he's a versatile defender. You can switch him 1 through 3, 1 through 4. So I love OG Anunoby, and I think he's going to play a huge role for the Toronto Raptors next season. And then you also have Gary Trent Jr. And Gary Trent Jr., man, he is cold-blooded. He's never afraid to take and make those big-time three-point shots. And then his game is also evolving. He's another player. And I feel like when you have these players, when you can take a guy, insert him into the lineup, and if he doesn't have the ball in his hand, that's fine. You can run him off screens, run him off pin downs, and he can catch catch and shoot and knock down threes. But Gary Trent Jr., since he's came into the NBA, I've been watching him since he's been on Portland, but his game as far as self-shot creation is evolving as well. He's starting to be able to put the ball on the floor and create some things for himself and for others. So I feel like the Toronto Raptors, their starting five is going to be so scary because they're so versatile and there's so many guys that can do so many different things. So I love those guys individually, and there's some other scary things that the Toronto Raptors can do as a team as well. Now, we've seen the Toronto Raptors do this a few times last season, and that's when they put out that super big lineup when I believe the smallest player on the court was like OG Anunoby, and he's like 6'7", 6'8", and they insert either Chris Boucher into the lineup or Precious Achiuwa. And with this lineup, I think this lineup is so scary because it's 5 players with elite athleticism, elite length, and elite mobility, and it just causes so many headaches for opposing teams on the defensive side of the ball, and it makes it so hard to score. When you have that lineup out there that can switch everything, it just makes it so much harder for the opposing team. And then offensively, when you got Pascal, Siakam, and OG Anunoby and Scotty Barnes in the lineup, you're going to be just fine because those guys are so special and so gifted that they can sometimes make something out of nothing. So I feel like the Toronto Raptors, they're going to have so many different versatile lineups. They're going to have so many different ways to beat you, and then they just have all these guys that's bubbling with individual potential. OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, and Scotty Barnes. I'm a huge fan of all of those guys, and the Toronto Raptors, if they put everything together next season, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. But that's going to be it for this video. If you guys enjoyed, please leave a like, comment down below if you agree or disagree, and then subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, and that's curtains.